welcome everyone to Cyber Talk with Nikolay show again. And today we have our special guest, Corey White. He is a good friend of mine, and I know him for quite some time, so I'm not going to steal his own introduction. But today's episode is going to be about how to do all things in new ways, in a way that Corey implemented certain things and put certain processes in place, how to assist organizations of various sizes to attain certain goals, to achieve certain cybersecurity tool set per se. So he'll tell more about this one, but I think the idea is pretty good, and we're going to be discussing what he has and how he's going to assist and help organizations. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Corey to give him time to introduce himself and talk a little bit about his adventure.
Thank you, Nikolay. I appreciate you having me on. Hi, I'm Corey White, CEO, founder of Savitar, a 28-year veteran of the cybersecurity industry. So I've been around a lot. I've failed a lot, and hopefully succeeded a lot in securing a lot of companies over the years. So I'm looking forward to breaking down my experience and how I see things after these 28 years in this industry.
Got it, got it. Thank you, Corey. So a little bit about what you're doing and how it assists organizations to do certain things better. Like you've been around, as you mentioned, cybersecurity for 28 years. So landscape was changing, and when we talk about cybersecurity 28 years ago, I think most people would associate with somebody in a back room managing firewalls and the extent of cybersecurity. So nobody was really paying a whole lot of attention, and the best thing people were doing managing firewalls and changing passwords. That's about it. Actually, they were not even changing passwords. 5-character passwords back in the day was, hey, you're doing pretty good. And then we got a little bit tougher, and we get to 8 characters, and we still use them. But like, what was the genesis of the company that you created, and why did you do it? What have you observed that is not being served that led you to say, hey, I think I have an opportunity here, and this is what is going to happen?
Yeah, a few things. Just circling back to just really the genesis of companies getting into cybersecurity. When I got in the mid to late '90s, I never forget. I connected a few very large companies to the internet, and once I connected them to the internet, next thing I realized, like to your point, they needed a firewall, and I saw a couple systems get compromised with back orifice, and some of you folks have to look what back orifice was, but it was an older attack vector from back in the day, but a remote administration tool. And so you think about those attacks then, they weren't really that malicious. There wasn't a way to really monetize these attacks at the time. You fast forward all the way to today, the attacks today, they're all about how can I monetize, how can I make money, how can the hackers get money off of ransomware, off of extortion, business email compromise. Those are the reasons why companies are getting attacked, and people get so lost in the fact that somebody's going to steal my data. No, they just want to steal your money as quickly and more efficiently as they can. And so, what made me start this company is I realized that there's a huge market just being absolutely ignored, and that's these small to medium sized businesses. And that's where the attackers have shifted their efforts. And yes, there's a lot of big hacks happening around, you think about MGM and a few others, but about 27 seconds, every 27 seconds, there's a new hack happening. And the majority of them are happening against small to medium sized businesses. So that's why I started this business, Savitar, to really attack that underserved market and help solve that problem. Nicola, I can't hear you. I don't know if
Nikolay, you're on mute.
Oh, sorry. Yes, yeah, definitely. I agree with you what Corey is saying, and I think you hit the nail on the head because small businesses are really in a tough spot. So on one side, you have laws and regulations that they have to comply. On the other side, you have threat actors, and somewhere in the middle, they have also financial constraints. how to make things better and satisfy everyone else, to make sure that they still stay solvent and continue to do business while paying for all
Mhm.
those additional things that essentially don't help them to generate additional revenue stream. It's like
Right.
somebody who is making widgets for aerospace, they're not gonna say, hey, your widget is gonna cost you 10,000 more because they're cyber secured. It's like, well, I don't think Boeing cares about widget
Mhm.
being cyber secure. It cares about widget being functional and allowing planes to fly. So that's kind of like all those added sort of expense that all this small company carries. They don't really have this ginormous or huge profit margins where they can say, yeah, sure. So, in your view, is like how would or how do organizations like small businesses benefit from what you have created, or what leverage they can have versus what they didn't have before? And let's say if somebody doesn't have any incident response plan, how would that work?
Yeah, yeah, great question. And it's a few. Yeah, I'll throw this stat that hit me yesterday, which really blew my mind. But here's the challenge we have in cybersecurity. The cybersecurity industry has turned into big pharma. Okay, you think about what the drug companies are doing. It's turned into big pharma. And another stat that really, this is what really nailed it home, is the third leading cause of death in the United States is medical error. So that makes you not want to go to the doctor, right? But when you think about in cybersecurity, we aren't doing the right things to solve the problem. Now, when you think even further, when it applies to small to medium sized businesses, I wouldn't go to a small to medium sized business and say, you need to have an incident response plan or you need to detect and respond. Here's why: a small to medium sized business cannot afford to have an incident. Okay. And so if they have a major ransomware incident or business email compromise where a large payment was wired to the wrong bank and institution and they can't get their money back, um, those businesses may go out of business. So you can't think about cybersecurity the way that we think about enterprise grade cybersecurity, where you have all these layers of defense in place and you're gonna detect and respond and monitor. Because if you have that one compromise, then you're out of business. So the way we at Savitar approach small to medium sized businesses is everything is block prevent first. So what we built here and really have coined the approach of, instead of detect and respond, you have all these companies saying we're managed detection and response, extended detection and response. You can't do that with SMBs. So we are prevention, detection, and response. And you have to do that first. And the crazy thing about this, Nikolai, is that when you look at every other model out there to secure anything, it's always prevention first. That's just like saying, again, I want to protect my house here, but I'm gonna leave my doors and windows open and I'm gonna get my Ring camera to send me an alert whenever somebody gets in my house. That would be traditional detect and response. But if you're prevention, I'm locking everything down and I monitor a lockdown environment. So that's what is absolutely required for small to medium sized businesses.
Yeah, it certainly makes sense, and I think yeah, traditional model, and hey, let's wait until something happens and then we're gonna respond. Definitely right. Small businesses don't have the money to respond. If they have an incident,
Right.
that's essentially the problem they may not recover from, especially ransomware. Even the regular incident, if somebody breaks in, steal the information, and they're not going to have enough money probably in the bank to pay all the fines or all the customers that they serve to issue all those credit monitoring and a bunch of other things. So it's definitely there. So in a way, how would you see like you talked about prevention and response more than detection and response. So prevention is definitely if you keep everyone at bay, but how would you say it would help our in your view for small businesses? Because there's also like you can do so much prevention, but traditional problems are still there. So any business that operates online they have systems that they have to maintain. They need to do patching, and they need to make sure that all those vulnerabilities are addressed in time. So you can't really always prevent from zero-day vulnerability that somebody didn't take care of and something is about to happen. So do you see that working kind of like prevention and cybersecurity hygiene that companies need to pay attention to?
Yeah, you nailed it with hygiene. So when you think about vulnerability management and patching, yes, you could sit here and worry about the 0 day vulnerabilities that have no patches that have come out to stop them from being exploited. Or you can look at last year alone, there were 25,000 vulnerabilities, CVEs, common vulnerabilities and exploits that came out that we cataloged as a country. And so if you have 25,000 in this year, which we're almost over here in December, there we're going to probably land around 28,000. Okay. So 25,000, do the simple math on that. You have about 68 vulnerabilities per day. So either you worry about these new 68 vulnerabilities that come out every single day, or do you worry about the 0 day that's out there? I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm not gonna worry about the 0 day. I'm gonna try to stay on top of these 68 per day. Now, when I started, 20 something years ago, you didn't have 68 per day. You may have had a couple hundred in a year. So a yearly pen test and just basic best practices was enough. But now, if you're an SMB and you don't have an automated vulnerability management program, meaning where you're scanning and patching and actively remediating on a daily basis, then you're going to get hacked. But that is also preventable. You take, our customer base of almost 100 customers worldwide. We have applied just last year alone, and I'll do my stats at the end of this year. We'll see where we land. Last year alone, we applied 224,000 patches across all of our customers. And using a pre-configured automatic patching tool tied into our platform that we've already worked with the customer to make sure we understood, okay, critical systems that need specific windows on the weekend or certain windows or whatever, those excluded. But I say about 90% of your systems, they can be patched on a regular basis. For instance, my computer, not critical. And depending on how you look at it, I'm the CEO of the company. I am critical, so I want to have patches applied as much as possible. That's what makes it critical. But if it goes down, hell, I can go get on anything and do my Zooms and calls. But me being secure is more important. So the last thing I'll say here around this, the risk equation has changed. It used to be, okay, I apply a patch. Is it going to affect the network? Is it going to affect business? But now, if you don't apply the patch, the hack that's going to happen from that is going to affect your network or your business or cause an outage. So, patching is more important and has to happen on a continuous basis. And that's how we approach it, along with other solutions to secure our customers.
Got it, got it. So, Corey, you touched upon a kind of interesting thing, and definitely I can relate to it. So, if you look back, it was done 10 years ago or 15 years ago, business was driving the patching. So, the moment
Mhm.
you try to do patching and anyone from the business side would complain, it's like, hey, cannot patch it. I'm doing this, and nobody would argue. It's like, okay, fine, security on the back burner. We're gonna patch whenever business decides we're gonna patch. So it appears what you just described that this equation kind of flipped the other way around. So businesses are
Mhm.
more cognizant. It's like, hey, if you don't do the patch, you may not have business to do tomorrow. So
Right.
it's not a question about whether you want it or not, or your process not going to run it. The action has to happen. So do you see this actually happening, this dramatic shift, or it's only some organizations? Because I still see the same issues. In some cases,
Yes.
businesses are still driving patching. It's like I can't touch it, running months end. It's like, okay, come back tomorrow, figure it out what other controls you can put in place, and don't bother me right now.
Well, you opened up a can of worms, and you know this, as a CISO for many years. Um, you got to solve the business problem. The business is what drives, in many cases, security. But what I've started to see with a lot of my CISO friends and what I advise a lot of our customers to do, if the business pushes back, then like, okay, you're not going to apply patches, you're not going to secure your environment per my recommendations. You sign off on the responsibility that you're accepting the responsibility of saying we're not going to patch or apply any security controls for our business unit. And then when one or two things are going to happen. If they're not bright, they'll go and sign off. But if they are, they're going to realize, wait a second. And I'll use you as a CISO, Nikolai, but Nikolai has just shifted the responsibility from himself over to me. So if a hack happens and he communicates to the board that business unit A has decided to manage their own security and not listen to the CISO, so any breach or incident that happens, they're responsible for. No business unit owner wants that in the middle of a board meeting. So that's what started to happen. And again, if CISOs are not taking that approach, you take what's happened with the SEC and some of the lawsuits that have come out against CISOs themselves for not actually applying proper security controls or potentially misleading the board. Which I debate that whole thing because if you tell the board today that we're applying patches and systems are patched and locked down and secure, the next day 68 new vulnerabilities come out. You're no longer at that point. It is a continuous process. And so the board could easily be misled depending on how you explained it by thinking that you're actively are doing these things, but you're going to always be behind. You got to figure out a way to catch up. That's why what we've done at Savitar is built an automated process to scan with agents and patch with agents on a continuous basis and orchestrate it with APIs. That's the way you have to do it. This has to be automated. If you're trying to do it manually with a person, responsible for patch management, that is absolutely absurd in 2023. You'll never catch up. So that's the balance that we have to strike is educating the board um, and also the business units and making sure responsibility is properly where it should lay within the organization. It should be on everyone. But we know historically it's always been the CISO whose butt is on the line if something happens.
Yeah, you're right about that part. So CSIS right now it's actually in pretty big jam after all those lawsuits came out against Sullivan and against SolarWinds. Like Sullivan got I think easy, but SolarWinds got a little bit into high waters. But definitely it changes the perspective. But at the same time, it's I still see a lot of pushbacks and even in a way where the approach is yes, you can explain the risk and you can help organization to understand, but when proverbial hit the fan, CISO still end up being responsible for something that should have happened but didn't happen, and the business accepted that. So it's a little bit kind of slippery slope to walk on. But let's say from perspective of small businesses, they don't have CISOs. So who's going to bear responsibility? And if they focus primarily on prevention and don't have anything else to spend, how would you see and how would the solution that you offer assist organizations to say, yes, this is and we're approaching the risk, and what stories do they make to make it compelling for them to say, this is the only approach we can survive or sustain, or what do they typically tell?
Yeah, I was strategic in choosing SMBs as our target customer because as a CISO, just circling back to close the loop here, you got to be a politician, you got to be a business person, and you got to be technical. And it's a lot of work to be good at all three as a CISO. But you look at an SMB that doesn't have that, it makes it a lot easier to secure an SMB because I can go to them and say, okay, we're not selling cybersecurity. We're not doing cybersecurity solutions. Think of us as giving you outcomes. And when I talk to the business owner, I'm asking them, okay, what goals are you after? Oh, you need to be compliant so you can sell more to larger companies. Got that? Check. We'll help you there. Okay, you got a bunch of security questionnaires that you're getting from these larger vendors as well, from those CISOs that are sitting down to these companies. All right. And you need cybersecurity insurance. Okay, got that. And interestingly enough, lastly, they'll say, yeah, and make sure we're secure and don't get hacked. Okay. So when I give them those three outcomes, then they aren't asking, what's your patching schedule? We're just saying, okay, we're patching you about every couple days. You know, a new vulnerability comes out, give it a chance to make sure it's not any bad, code in that patch that can take systems down. But give it a few days, and then we're applying patches. And so I can show within our platform, new critical vulnerability comes out within a few days, it's patched and remediated. And sometimes we got to send a note to their IT person, whatever, and just a reminder to reboot their systems. But for the most part, we have an automatic security program in place. So the change control, the politics that you run into in a larger organization, you don't get that in SMBs. They just like make this problem go away so that we can go and do more business and get more customers. And that means, compliance, security questionnaires, insurance, and making sure they don't get hacked. That's it. So it's a totally different mindset, which I appreciate. It's a refreshing to just, I hate to say it, but just get shit done and secure an organization. So that's what our customer base looks like.
Thank you everyone for joining us on part 1, a new approach to cyber with Cora White, CEO of CyberTar. Please stay tuned for part 2.
Thanks for joining us. For more information about these topics or IS Squared, please go to www.issquaredinc.com.